Thank you. All right. Let's call this to order, 6:06. This is the meeting of the zoning advisory group. From the planning board, we have 6. So we have a quorum. That's good. Did you have a sign up sheet out there? Yep. All right. I would just say, please make sure that everybody signs in so we know who is here.
Yeah, pass it.
We know who's on Zoom, but we'll go. And the only one that's on Zoom that's not actually here is Pat, right? Of planning board. Thank you. I think that's right. Okay. All right. So we have a quorum. Public comment period for items not on the agenda. Anybody have anything that's not on the agenda tonight that they want to talk about? And Chuck, I know we have some questions about some definitions, but we'll address those I'll put them on the agenda for the next meeting.
Yeah, correct.
Yep, that's fine.
Great.
Yep. All right. Conservation subdivision. Before we get talking about, so there was one thing in the conservation subdivision that we kind of skipped over and said we'd come back to. And that was the discussion about whether it should apply whether it should be required in 3 zones: rural residential, rural ag, and conservation, or 2, rural ag and conservation. We need to settle that before we can pass this along. And after thinking about it and looking at the comprehensive plan and all that, one of the things we're trying to do is streamline the process for building housing. And the conservation subdivision to me seems to add overhead to that. And so I have a question whether we should do it in rural residential. There's also a recommendation from the housing committee that we not require it in rural residential. Correct, Chuck?
Not required, but it could be done. It's not
correct. And the way it's worded right now, conservation subdivision can be done in any zone, or may be done in any zone, but it's only required. Currently, it's only required in conservation. With this update, right now it says it would be required in rural residential, rural ag, and conservation. But the question is, should it be required? Should it be required in rural residential? Somebody certainly could do a conservation subdivision in rural residential, but should it be required? And so I guess we have a recommendation from the housing committee that it not be. So I guess there are other thoughts on that. Sure.
Could made rural residential zones out of some of our ag district. So I would say that anything that's in the ag district, this should apply to. And so that would include some of the rural residential, unless we change the zoning category of those ag district lands that are currently.
You're talking about state ag district, right? Is that? Mm-hmm.
Dogs and other land near us, and
but you're zoned rural residential?
so
Tony, you're in that.
What's that?
You're in that.
That's true. That's true. And I'm in neighborhood residential.
but I don't know, I thought the zoning should change, that we should not be rural residential, but but in any case, I mean, there definitely should be something in here that if you you're changing that, anything that's in the ag district should apply to.
What's the,
And if it's in the ag district, that means that the farm had to apply to the county ag protection board and get accepted as being a viable farming operation on suitable lands. So it's already,
but then this is looking at something that's outside of the zoning code. So in the zoning code, there's rural ag, which is a zone in the zoning code. But what you're talking about is it state or county?
It's
State?
a simple thing would be to say that anything that is, it's not that simple, but change any of the ag district lands which are currently zoned rural residential to change that zoning to be rural agriculture.
Well, that's a whole nother discussion.
But so your worry is that it would hamper housing development, potentially make it add an overlay of complication for.
Correct. Because one of the things we talked about is trying to streamline
Yeah.
the process so that people don't have to go through really complicated overhead to build housing, right? And in the rural ag districts, in the rural ag zones, I shouldn't say districts, I'll say zones because they're different. In the rural ag zones, there's an overriding interest. I don't know if it's overriding, but there's an interest and a priority to protect farmland, to protect ag land. And so with rural agricultural, I think, it offers us by requiring it in rural ag, it gives us a tool to help
Do that.
deal
right.
with farmland or ag land. But rural residential, I think the thought was that, it's already zoned rural residential. So, it's encouraged, it can be encouraged, it can be done. Somebody could say, a developer could come in and say, yeah, I want to do a conservation subdivision, but it's not required. And the housing committee's concern is the overhead. That's, and one of the things I heard multiple times was, well, if we do it in all three zones, we're talking about 91% of the land in the town would have this requirement of where you could only do conservation subdivisions.
for major subdivisions.
It doesn't say.
For major
For
subdivisions.
major, not for all subdivisions.
Right.
Say that again then. Please repeat.
Repeat, Nan.
So the conservation subdivision is applied to major subdivisions, not
Right.
minors. So 5
Right.
lots or more.
Right.
Right.
But in the meantime, it doesn't have to be, this doesn't say everything has to be conservation subdivision. It says that it may be a conservation subdivision.
That's the.
Currently, the draft says it's required. It must be every major subdivision within those three zones must be a conservation subdivision. The change we're talking about is making it only required in rural ag and conservation, not rural residential.
That much extra work.
There's the biggest thing about it is that there's a lot more work to do all of the inventorying, soil types and wetlands. There's all this stuff that you have to do that's now.
Well, I take a little exception to that because all of those things should be part of the regular subdivision review anyway. They're all part of existing conditions that the subdivision really looks at on a regular basis. So it's different. There's no doubt that it's looking at subdivisions in a different, how you do it is in a different way. Yes, so there is more work because you have to do the site analysis, but the major subdivisions should all have, look at, all of those existing natural resources when they come in.
See a hardship here.
I thought you were saying you did. For
I
this.
see a hardship for the builders,
Oh,
to doing a major subdivision to respond to the requirements of the conservation subdivision.
I can pass it.
Well, we have this microphone that can be passed around. Greg, you want to say something?
Yeah, so Nancy, one thing that housing's concerned with is that they have to buy more land to build a single house.
Mm,
So you're increasing the cost, the development cost.
Yeah, they don't have to buy any more land. They use whatever land they have on the parcel. There's no requirement to buy more land.
I know that, but the developer's gonna have to buy the land to put into conservation.
Why? Why do you say that?
Well, you got 50% have to go into open space, right?
Yep.
Right? So it requires takes 2 acres to build a house in Dryden. I know you're gonna say there's no lot size, but if you go to the health department, they're pretty much gonna require 1.5 acres to 2 acres. Right? So that means you're gonna put 1.5 acres to 2 acres into conservation, right?
Well, I mean, it depends on how many houses are being built. I mean, if it's a large enough development, they're probably not going to be on individual septic systems. They put in some like sort of package plan or
In
something.
this town, most everything's built on septic system and well. There's very little water and sewer available in this town.
No, I know, but don't you, in your major subdivisions, don't you have like allow engineered like community package plant systems?
No, not that I've ever heard of,
No,
right?
you'll see a common well, you might see a common well, that's about it, but no community septic unless it's privately owned, and those turn into rentals. So.
They are allowed to put their septic in the
So-
conservation, so.
So you see that you have to buy some land to put into open space, so you've just doubled the cost of the land cost. And rural residential is where the affordable housing is gonna go, or neighborhood residential, so, you're taking away. The whole part is, it's okay to conserve land, but you gotta have a place to funnel the people to. As part of smart growth, as part of the original comp plan, is to redirect growth to the hamlets, the major corridors that have transportation, and places with water and sewer. So I don't know why you would restrict rural residential. I'm just, I don't.
Because there's not that much good ag land, and certainly where we are, there are the important soils, that is good ag land.
But you're not talking about changing the zoning from rural residential to rural ag. You're talking about the existing rural residential area.
I would love to talk about changing the zoning from rural residential to rural ag. I think it would be fine.
Well, and the conservation subdivision doesn't change the density.
Right.
Density is still set in the zone.
See the density.
So the
I
idea.
don't know what that is.
Well, the density table, we haven't adjusted the density tables
The old density.
pretty much. Well, we did. Last meeting, we did go through there was some density in there, wasn't there? At the last meeting?
So there's still 2 acres, they're 2 acres basically. For rural residential, rural ag, conservation's 1 acre. Or without the health department apply. Right?
That's it.
You got
Right.
the point, I think what Chuck's making for housing is you gotta have a place for people to be able to build an affordable house, and if they have to buy more, if the developer has to buy more land. And put some in conservation, that's gonna cost more on that 1 acre lot that they're building on, that's the complaint. So I mean, you look at. Trillium Woods, what is it, 240 acres that, and he's building on, what, 60 something acres? that extra land cost went into those lots. You know, so he's giving away this land. And wonder why a 2-acre lot's gonna cost $70,000. Because he's got all this other overhead on these other lots, so. Which is fine in conservation, but is it really what you want for a rural residential?
It does feel like a tool that again restricts housing development, which is the problem with a lot of the zoning, is that it does end up being an equity issue where it's a way to prevent development. It's
Although you're
insidious.
allowed to put the septic in the conservation.
Yeah, but I think what the idea is they could do it, but to make it mandatory, it's yet one more hoop that they have to jump through
Mhm.
in a district that maybe they shouldn't have.
Yeah, my concern, that's really where my concern is. And I mean, I get it. It's the same kind of thing, do you have to, but it's more or less the perception to developers that we're adding overhead in these areas when we say we want them to develop housing. And that's,
It's exclusionary zone.
it
Which
is,
is what's,
so, Yeah.
Making the zoning law exclusionary. No.
so
Is there a reasonable compromise? Meaning, it's not required in rural residential except when the property is also designated as within an agricultural district.
And that would do it.
as defined by New York State.
that's as defined by New York State. I don't know, Nan, do people do that, tie things to the New York State ag districts?
Yep, all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, keep in mind that, the ag district is not static. It's not like a zoning law. It changes on a regular basis as parcels of land are added to the ag district or removed from the ag district. So it's not something
It
that's
is not a
permanent.
static thing. And I would argue, so Craig pointed out, I live in an ag district. That's true. I am in an ag district. I'm in neighborhood residential. It's already been subdivided and built on. You're not going to turn that back into ag land.
Is he in an ag district?
I am in the ag district.
Because you guys put the farm in it, or did somebody?
It's rural residential.
Well,
I mean, another way of looking at it is if your rural residential is where you feel your higher density of development needs to be,
Right.
that when not in this phase, but in another phase, that might be an area where you offer density bonuses.
Well, and we, one of the things we're going to do as part of this is look at the zones themselves. That's not in this phase, but
Right.
at some point, we need to look at the zones themselves and say, are they defined correctly?
But you could say, yeah, we want housing, but we also, I mean, I personally don't think that housing and conservation is mutually exclusive. But if you could at some point in this process make an incentive that says if you do a conservation subdivision in the rural residential, you get a density bonus.
Right. Well, and we talked about that, right? We talked about putting a density bonus on conservation divisions.
Right.
And that, but that's in a separate area, right? Density bonuses are a separate thing.
Yes, that's right.
Not written into the conservation subdivision law. That's
Correct.
stuff somewhere else.
Correct.
That's the whole thing about this zoning stuff that just makes it so tricky, is that, things refer to each other, the sections kind of bounce around and trying to keep it straight. But I think, yeah, when developers come in and look at things, they can be encouraged to do conservation subdivisions, but, and they may do it, like, for example, the 172 Ed Hill Road project, they're not required to do a conservation subdivision there, under current law, but they're doing it. And so, you know, it comes down to, you know, do we want to require it in so much of the town?
It's not so much of the town if you just pull out those that are in the established ag district. And she's right, you can join or not join the ag district, but it doesn't change real fast because you have to make an application to the county board. They have to assess your farming, then the land, and see whether they want to accept it into the ag district. So, I mean, it isn't as though it changes willy-nilly.
Tony,
And I think that if the county board has looked at it and said, this is a viable farm, this is good farmland, we accept it into Ag District 1 or Ag District 2, then I think this conservation law should apply. No matter, you know, even if the previous planner decided he wanted to take this good land and make it designated rural residential, which.
Right.
and I appreciate all the work that's been done on this, and I will admit that I have not been as connected to it as I should have been, and I know a lot of times I put into this. But my feeling though is that this really fits into a larger picture of the whole subdivision law, zoning as we're talking about. And I'm not understanding why we're pushing this forward so quickly without looking at the bigger picture as the next phase. I mean, because a lot of these things work together, right? We really should be looking at the whole zoning picture, back to your point. Where are the ag districts compared to the rural residential? If there's a lot of overlap, that really should probably be looked at. And this does feel like it's limiting the ability to build housing in rural residential areas where you're trying to find housing, right? And we are not going to be able to get water and sewer out to these places easily. So we're going to be basically using wells and septic fields. So I'm not comfortable that this is the right time to actually be voting on this law. I feel like it should be part of the bigger. I think it was pushed by the moratorium question, right? And
There was a decision made when we were looking at phase 1 to incorporate conservation subdivisions because of the priorities that are in the comprehensive plan. One of them is protection of ag lands.
yes,
And so there was a decision made early on to include conservation subdivisions in this phase, but not the rest of subdivision.
yes. But I just feel like it's grown, right? And it maybe not grown, but we've learned a lot. And it seems like there's a lot of open questions still. And how this might limit the ability to provide housing. We're not including the zoning. That's just my sense as I read through everything and listen to everybody talk. It's and it comes back to land rights too, and we're stopping people from doing certain things. And I think I've said this before, the number of times we actually see large subdivisions come through here is so small. The timing doesn't seem like it's that forced. And it seems like if we could get it better and look at the zoning as part of this, it would make sense. That's all.
And so we defined phase 1.
Yeah,
Conservation subdivision is in.
I agree.
phase 1.
I agree. I just said,
And the rest of major subdivisions is not. There's also this request for the moratorium on major subdivisions, which I think would be a mistake to put a moratorium in place, to be honest, on major subdivisions. And so the town board is interested in things we can do sooner rather than later to help address this issue of protecting ag lands.
I get that. I understand.
Right. So, yes.
I think the compromise that was proposed is a good place to arrive at for now.
To say it's required in conservation, rural ag, and rural residential if the rural residential lot is in one of the ag districts.
I think that satisfies what you were raising, Nancy,
Yeah.
and doesn't insist that we include it in 91 or whatever the percentage, the correct percentage ends up being. We have a holding position. I frankly spent a lot of time looking at what Nan developed in her slide set for Hamilton, and I'm pretty persuaded by it. I
Okay.
don't know that when we get to phase two and into those weeds, that we'll necessarily do the same thing, but if we do, I'm pretty persuaded that we're gonna, as Nan has said, have our cake and eat it too. More conservation and more housing, including some affordable housing units within that more housing.
Yeah, and the other thing I would point out about if we push things to phase, like, for example, if we were to say, okay, we're gonna push the conservation subdivision thing into phase two. Problem with that is, you see how long it's taken to get through
Yeah.
what we've gotten through. We are a year away from even starting phase two, I think, or close to it.
Yeah.
And I would hope we're only a few months away from starting phase two, but the way this is going, realistically, I don't think that's the case. So I understand what you're saying, but I don't know that I want to change the scope of what we put in phase one, I guess is.
I guess I just would want to make sure that we are going to address some of these other issues in phase two that are obviously stumbling blocks and making it not the greatest.
Right. And I think we need to. And the other thing is remember that where we are right now is we're making a recommendation to the town board. They're still going to have public hearings on this. There's still going to be discussion on this. They may decide they don't want to enact it now. They may decide they want to change it, right?
Yeah.
So this is really just a recommendation to move forward. What do others think about this compromise, that it be required in rural residential only if in a defined ag district?
I'm in favor.
But not if it's not in an ag district, then it's not required. But they could do it if they want to, and the same is true in neighborhood residential, if they want to do neighborhood, any of that.
Tony, could you just remind us of how much rural residential is within an ag district?
So that's something.
I think it's much.
That's something I don't know, but before. So I'll tell you where I am.
I am too. I'm in an ag
It is
district. I'm
bef-
rural
bef-
residential.
Before this were enacted, I think it's a good compromise for the moment. I would want to see what that means, like how much rural residential actually sits in ag districts. I'd be curious to see that.
Shouldn't we know that
but-
before we?
Well, I don't think we need it before we make the recommendation.
Sure, we can sort it out on another stage.
I mean, we certainly could. We could, push this off to. I mean,
And for me, it would, not that I'm a voting of this,
Mhm.
but, so you have 100 acres in this rural residential area you're talking about. What's the difference to the developer? It sounds like he has to do most of the work anyway, just to do seeker with wetlands and all that. He's got to do all that. What is and there's not a difference in density?
No.
What is the difference? What would be the core difference for the builder if we insisted he did it?
so in a standard major subdivision, they don't need to do things like inventory soil types and those kind of things. They're only required to inventory like state recognized wetlands,
Yeah.
right? The seeker stuff, the stuff by the state. This sets forth a whole bunch of other stuff that needs to be inventoried.
Well, they also have conserved 50% of the land to
Right,
cultivation, which
right,
is a
right.
major part of, they're buying up 20 acres,
So let's say they buy 100 acres, they have to conserve
50% of that would be,
50% of it.
which is a lot.
It's
Right, yeah.
50% of the ag land.
No,
No.
Of
No,
the
it's
whole-
50% of the
of
parcel.
that lot.
On,
This says 50% of the ag land is what it says, I believe.
Well, maybe Nan can fill in, but
Yeah, it's 50% of the parcel.
yeah, that's what I.
And then there, the regulations outline how that 50%, well, what's included in that 50%, which could include agricultural land if there happens to be ag land on that parcel. And the major difference is the 50%. The major subdivision rules are more intense than the minor subdivision rules, regardless of whether you do a conservation subdivision or not. the I think the difference is that the conservation subdivision has a different kind of philosophy. It's got a different foundation where the house sites are actually located to be beneficial for giving those new homeowner residents physical or visual access to that open space. So whereas a major subdivision, typically, a surveyor is hired and they're eligible for 20 lots and they put in a cul-de-sac and make 20 equally spaced parcels, for 20 new homes. The conservation subdivision, yes, we're still constrained with water and septic systems, but all of those other dimensions, setbacks and road frontages and things like that are flexible. And so it's kind of turns the design of the subdivision is as a more thoughtful process, because you have to first start by identifying where you want the houses to go, then where the roads and driveways go to minimize the amount of infrastructure that has to be put in for roads. And the very last step is to put in the parcel lines. It's the least important part of a conservation subdivision, whereas in a regular subdivision, it's the most important part. So it's really all oriented to getting at a better design for that particular parcel.
Nan, in practicality, does it end up being more expensive housing? No, if you have it in a conservation district, does the housing become more expensive?
Yes.
It can, because they're very desirable places for people to live. People want to live there, but it also depends on the kind of housing that's put in. Not all conservation designs are, there might be a mix of single family homes, 2-family homes, townhouses, and other kinds of housing that get mixed in. So it all kind of depends on, it depends on the parcel, the location, the market forces. It depends on a lot of things. But, I don't think that in and of itself it makes it more expensive to build a house in a conservation subdivision than any major subdivision. I think that they're often marketed as more, in a way that makes the houses that I said could, in some places, makes the houses more expensive. But if you had a big enough major subdivision that you would get an engineered septic, like a package plant that would serve 20 or 30 homes, those lots could be a quarter acre. So there are affordable housing opportunities if it's big enough to have those kinds have that kind of infrastructure added in.
And if they're density bonuses, you can almost guarantee it, right? In other words, there's going to be some high amenity sites in the building sites that there's going to be some high, is this working?
Turn it on.
Turn it on. Great idea.
This one.
Oh.
Yeah, this guy.
I think this is working now.
Yep.
There you go.
So just to go back to what Ann was saying, as I understand it, and Craig and I may interpret this differently, and I'm not saying I'm right and that he's wrong, but as I understand it, if 50% of a major subdivision is set aside with a conservation subdivision in place, then what happens in the remaining 50% is that you have clustering of the lot sites. There can be variation in those sites. Some might be larger, might have more of the amenities of viewing and enjoying the open space and the protected areas, more access to them. But on average, there's going to be variation in those sites or the planning board can work with the developer to encourage either homogeneity or diversity. And once that's done, going back to what Nan was saying, there is not only in sewer and water savings if those are communalized, but also the roadways, which are a huge expense. Now all of a sudden we have limited amount of penetration into the parent lot that is partially subject to conservation subdivision and partially not. Those roadways, the frontages, and any infrastructure, the utility style that goes into it is now reduced. And if they are not on wells and septic, then they can really have smaller lots, all of them or some of them. So that's going to reduce the cost of entry and settlement on these lots that are being used, and density bonuses now can come into effect if the developer says, and by the way, I want to throw in X number of affordable housing, they get a bonus. And that's going to drop the price of those X number of lots.
Doesn't want this to be required.
That's correct. And that's, I can go along with that because I think we should learn, going back to what I think some of you folks are saying on the board, on the SAG board and planning, that we should learn from how it applies in the other two zones first and in rural residential with accepting the compromise, which I like. I think it makes sense to say may rather than must, and let's observe this. We don't have to be in a rush, and the planning board can come back and amend this part of the zoning law in the future and say must if it looks like it's going to satisfy housing needs or other needs. If Nan is right that you can have your cake and eat it too, more conservation and more housing, some of which is low cost and affordable, then the planning board in the future might say, this is great. This is what we want in Dryden. If it doesn't, then we can keep it as may rather than must.
So I missed the first part of this discussion, but from reviewing, I don't know if we already covered this, but I think taking out the neighborhood residential is being required for conservation subdivision would be a good idea.
We're talking about rural residential.
You're just talking about rural. Okay. Is neighborhood residential taken?
Currently, the way the thing is written, it's required in rural residential, rural ag, and conservation.
Okay, so we did take out the
we
neighborhood.
want it in, the discussion is, do we want it required in rural residential?
Well, wouldn't that depend on kind of where it's located? Because in the comp plan, there's kind of those nodal development corridors that are
Which is
always
where
referenced.
the compromise might.
What
might
about
help.
a separate section dealing with ag land?
What do you mean?
Well, yeah, and I think those are all topics that were kind of set for the next phase of the project. Was really where we're going to get into zoning districts and boundaries and really, because we have not done anything to apply any of those concepts from the comprehensive plan in this phase.
Yeah, because I just have a problem with the 50% because it really depends on where. Because in some places it makes sense, but in other places it doesn't because it puts a lot of undue onus on the property owner. If you have like a 5-acre lot and you're taking 50% of that away, that really limits what you can
Well,
do.
it wouldn't ever be on a 5-acre lot because this would only be for major subdivisions.
Major, okay. Well, still, same idea. Even if, so bump it up to 25 or 50 acres. If it's already in farming, most of the farmers that own the land have subdivided off the piece of the property that isn't sustainable for farming, like woodland or, so that's going to be hard for them to set aside 50% of tillable land or usable land the way it's currently written. That's kind of my big concern with the way it is.
But you're not setting aside, it can still be, it would still be tillable land. It's because that would count towards the.
But if it's along like a major corridor, like a nodal corridor, where you could fit in 1 acre zoning, then you're really limiting, it becomes like bigger lot.
Then it's not going to be in rural ag.
Yeah, I mean, the conservation subdivision has nothing to do with the density. It's what you get, whatever the density is that the zoning allows for that district. So it's really it's a siting, it's a lot size and siting method. It basically makes everything much more flexible. It gives the landowner a lot more opportunity. So for instance, if a farmer had his field and he needed the money or she needed the money, but really wanted to keep farming, they could get the full development potential of the whole parcel, and the 50% is still tillable and farmable.
So in other words, they could be on a 1 acre lot or whatever the health department minimum is, 1.5, 2 acre lot.
So,
You can, but
well,
even if it's on the, let's say you have a 1.5 acre lot or 2 acre lot, that's the minimum the health department requires. It's 1 acre. So it's 1 acre.
It is 1 acre, but it's extremely difficult and driving to build on 1 acre. Yeah, but our current zoning is 2 acres for ag, 1 acre in conservation.
Right. And my point is that when you're laying out the way the conservation subdivision law works is the way you're laying it out, the conserved part, that conserved acreage doesn't have to be part of the lot. So in other words, you don't have to split off a 1 acre lot and say 50% of that is conservation. You're looking at the whole parcel, as I understand it, and Ann, correct me if I'm wrong,
Right.
but you're looking at the whole parcel. Let's use the 172 Ed Hill Road as an example. There's 56 acres that's being deeded off to the wetland trust, right? That's part of the conservation land, right? So the 50% that they have to reserve doesn't have to, like, it doesn't mean you have to split a lot into 2 acre lots and half of those 2 acre lots have to be 4 acre lots. It has to do with the whole subdivision and how it gets split out.
you cluster the house.
But the developer still has to buy that extra land to put into
Well,
conservation.
that's true if you're talking about a developer, but the example they were using was a farmer wants to split off a lot or two, but they've already split enough, so now it's a major subdivision. All their farmland that they're still farming is the conservation part, right? It doesn't have to, you can still split off that 2 acre lot. That was the example that we were talking about.
Are the main advantages being able to do better cluster housing and have like shared septic?
I mean, that's part of it. I mean, the main goal of a conservation subdivision is to allow for development and conserve open space.
Right.
You cluster the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can cluster them
Well, also
or
the-
strategically locate the houses. They might not necessarily be all clustered, but they might be strategically located to preserve that 50%.
Well, also, we can't do community septic right now, correct?
You can do it, but it's hard to get.
It's hard, so that's an improvement.
It's hard to get a mortgage on a.
Yes.
Sort.
Yeah.
You can get one with a well, but not
Septic.
a septic. And if you own the septic system, it needs to be on your property. Can't be on private land, so.
And the limitation that you have on sewer and water, is really your single most it's the biggest challenge that you have for housing.
Yeah, definitely.
So, you have to, that's where your comprehensive plan is looking at where is water and sewer, or where could water and sewer be. Those are the places you want to develop, and the rest of it, you want to have lower levels of development. And the conservation subdivision is really the only technique that there is that allows a landowner to get full development capacity and open space at the same time for a major subdivision.
So the question remains, the question we're trying to decide here is where do we want to require it? And what I'm hearing is it is required in conservation and rural ag because we're trying to protect ag lands here. And rural residential if the rural residential zone is in an ag, if the lot is in an ag district.
I think I want a percentage of land in Dryden that applies to, I guess.
I'm sorry?
I'd like to understand what the percentage of land that applies to before we
I
have to
would
go to
too.
that. Because if it's 90%, then that kind of negates that rule. If it's 10% of land, it's different. No, but it would be good to know what that is.
I mean, those maps were in your comprehensive plan. We could look them up and look at where the ag district is and overlay it with, looking
I'm looking
where
at the map.
zoning
It's
is.
a little hard to.
That's. Can I ask a question about one thing?
Oh, conservation and ag.
It's on, this was given to me before the ag meeting last month. And I think it's April's copy. Is that the most current
Okay.
conservation subdivision?
It's what?
April?
I think so. It's a
So these are the two.
I think the April one was the last, does the
So,
purpose
yeah,
statement have 8 items on it?
that makes sense.
Perfect.
Yeah. Then that's the most recent.
So on page 2. Dimensional standards, #1, subdivision must preserve at least 50% of the parcels unconstrained, didn't know that was a word. And buildable acreage as open space, parcels unconstrained land,
I'm getting better at this computer stuff, so this is.
how does that work?
Let me open that up.
It's number one, Nan, on D, it's on page 2.
Hold on, I gotta look at it. I gotta get it open.
I'm gonna make it there.
So my take is that this makes sense in conservation and ag zoning today. If we don't know the actual data around how much rural residential actually lies within these ag districts and in frequency, and we actually review these, and I don't think we have a little time, I would say that we just take rural residential out of this for now. And we could do that in the next phase, but for now, we conserve the known ag zoning.
Well,
And conservation.
there's 2 things we could do. We could take it out for now. We make a recommendation to the town board. And before it goes to the town board, we find out those numbers.
I'm okay with that.
And then, because and then the town board can make a decision at that point. to
Yeah,
Decide.
because we're not actually making a decision anyway, really.
I mean, if you look at the ag districts, you'll notice that the ag districts are not near the nodal areas, right? If you look at where the ag districts are, they are not near the nodal areas. So this idea of, so I think even if we said that, my sense is it would be okay,
Yeah. No.
but because these are areas that we're not trying to encourage too much development, right? So it's but you're right. I think I think it would be nice to know what that means.
So, I mean, we could say that we recommend this town board for these 2 zones, and we will figure it. We're going to look into what percentage of rural residents should be impacted. And then we could have a second recommendation.
Here's a zoning map.
Yeah, but that doesn't show the ag.
It doesn't, so I know, it's really the
Yeah.
ag districts. But if you saw the map she had of the ag districts are really these outlying parts. They're not.
It's not the strip through Farna. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not out by Wood Road. It's not. You're right.
It's in these, I think there's relatively small amounts of overlap, but it would be a good thing to know. And I think,
I mean, the other thing that concerns me honestly though, is this is based off fairly old information too. And if we were to think about the rezoning and what has actually happened since this was made and where we actually see growth, this map could change a bit.
And then we come back and we look at that. stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, it might make it easier. And like she said, the ag districts do change, right? So it's,
I think they come up for renew this next year,
Yeah.
you guys will be right. You'll be in.
So if we were to rezone, this law would just follow that rezoning effort. So
all right.
That Tony, that question that was raised about number
Hold on,
2.
Too many people talking at once.
Oh,
Hold on.
sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't hear someone else talking. Go ahead.
It was that ag districts come under review every 10 years, so it's not like a frequent change.
Okay. Go ahead, Nan.
No, the question that was asked about the 50% of the land, the language that's in here, I'd have to go back to an earlier version. I think this got changed along the way. Usually we just say 50% of the acreage of the parcel is preserved.
And this is of the parent parcel, not
Of the parent parcel. But
correct.
the language, I think there was a discussion about requiring the 50% of the, so basically what I see this is saying now is that it's the 50% of the open space has to be on unconstrained and buildable land, which is different than what I had originally recommended.
I remember this discussion. I
Yeah,
remember
so
this.
this is pretty significant actually, because let's use an example. You have 100 acres, you got 20 acres of wetland, for instance. So the 50% would be 50 acres. It would be 20 acres of wetland and 30 acres of other land. If you have a rule that says it's got to be 50% of the unconstrained acreage, then you have the 20% or the 20 acres of wetlands set aside, and then 50% of the parcel, another 50 acres set aside. So this actually requires you to set aside more than 50% of the parcel, which is, some communities do that, and I understand why that discussion came up in one of our meetings where, hey, you know, like wetlands are already protected, so why would we put them, you know, why would we add them in the open space? But it's a big restriction to do it the way it's currently worded now. I agree with that, and somewhere along the line it got changed.
Yeah, I remember the discussion around it now, and there was a concern about, well, you know, is it really conserving? And I think part of it was in the context of the Trillium Woods thing and wanting to, you know, well, you know, a big chunk of it is already wetlands. We don't want that to count towards the green
Right.
towards the green space, right? And
but it you know, the way this is, where we have primary and secondary conservation lands. I mean, it's, if you look later on in there where we talk about what open space is, the primary conservation areas include streams, floodplains, wetlands, critical or rare habitats, steep slopes, you know, so I think that I would recommend that you rethink that one.
I mean, there's no way that doesn't increase your housing cost. Right there, you're going to pay 70,000 an acre instead of 40 because
Yeah, I think it's very restrictive. I mean,
And
I guess it's a
unless you're the farmer
compromise.
selling off a small batch, the person that comes to do development is going to have to pay a lot more for that land and sell fewer. So
It on that was that the idea was 50, if you have the ag lands with ag lands of statewide importance, that in that case 50% of the arable ag lands get protected. Somehow it got changed to be any kind of conservation stuff. But I would still go for, if you have the arable soils, soils of statewide importance, that that you preserve 50% of that. Now, what you do with the rest of how you word the rest of it, I don't know, but.
Yeah, but
I'd
that's
like to
not what this is saying. What this is saying is that the
I know,
50%.
it got changed. It got
Yeah.
changed into this. I don't know
Yes.
how it got changed.
Yeah, I think it was the Trillium Woods discussion.
It was.
Yeah.
I remember the meeting. I'll have to go
Yep.
back and find the recording, but yeah, I remember the discussion. I know why it got changed to what it is, but go ahead.
Well, yes, I remember this too, and it was changed. It was promoted by the Agriculture Committee because we recognize that areas like wetlands have state preservation protection, but the farmland doesn't really have any protection. So if we didn't do something active about farmland, it would not be protected. It does seem to make land very expensive. I understand that, but the reason it got in there is because of the farmers worried about loss of their land and not having any statutory protection of any kind.
But they're talking about 50% of the unconstrained land. So
Yeah, and the way
The
the
wording's
rest of
bad,
it,
but the original,
really penalizes the.
right, no, but the wording a couple of weeks ago or months ago was 50% of prime agricultural lands and lands of agricultural lands of statewide importance.
I think Frank had a point that agriculture might need its own subdivision law because they're going to be, if they try to subdivide their property and 90% of its prime soils, there's not much left over. You have to
yeah, I
remember-
mean, I think Tony, the group, my recommendation is, and I understand what you're getting at, and the Trillium Woods is an example, but we have to look at all of this as we're trying to balance a whole lot of things. I think that if we call prime agricultural lands, which it is included as a primary conservation element to be conserved, and we say 50% of the parcel, just simply 50% of the parcel has to be preserved, then you go to the details and you say, okay, we have to first preserve ag lands, rocky outcrops, steep slopes, rare habitats, floodplains, wetlands, and streams. And if that only constitutes 30% of the parcel, well, then you got to find 20% more of the parcel to be preserved that's not those things. So I think protection of those lands are baked into it, and it's just simpler to just say 50% of the parcel has to be
50% of the
preserved.
parcel. Well, and here's the other thing. This particular parcel that has prompted a lot of the decision is a bit unique in that it has a wide variety of things on it. A lot of the things that come up are not like this. They're farm, it's 90% of it's farmland or 90% of it's something else, right? So I agree. I think the 50% of parcel is more the way it should be worded. Yep.
I would say, I think that's where they come to us, the garbledness of this laws right now is really open to interpretation. What Nan just said would be far clearer and easy to adjudicate.
Yeah.
It's sort of, there's some, really.
It would be. Yeah, it would make it a lot easier for the ZBA, wouldn't it?
It's including, but not limited to,
Yeah,
someone's arguing.
And I think it gets to what the Ag Committee wants, is that it by saying 50% of the parcel needs to be preserved, it really gets to where it is.
See that.
But
No, I agree. What Tony said about the parcel being unique, it does apply. In this particular case, if, let's say 30% is wetland, then you're only preserving a small fraction of the prime farmlands. In this case.
Yeah, well, we can't make a decision based on just one project. You have to look at the whole town. Because if this Trillium Woods never came up, then we would be having a whole different discussion right now.
Right.
Question, but if prime soil is under constraint, what if you have 70% prime soil?
But it's not under constraint. We're saying you have to
You have to preserve 50%.
50% of the parcel.
It's not real clear here.
So what that means is if 70% of a parcel is prime farmland, some of that is going to get built on.
Okay,
Yep.
it's not real clear in this, you do know.
It's really just saying prioritize these things, wetlands, farmland,
Correct.
taking that 50%.
Correct.
The
Yeah,
conservation.
it's not.
So,
I mean,
so let's say the parcel was 100% prime farmland. They have to preserve 50% of it. Yeah.
It's good that you're describing now.
Yeah.
It's a balancing, you know, and you have to look at this as no one is going to get 100% of, you know, one thing or another. It's a balance.
I know, I get it. I get that. But the point is that I think if we think about things as a whole, and I get that this one parcel is really kind of unique. The wording that's simpler, that's easier to enforce, that's easier to, I think it accomplishes, does it accomplish it exactly? You know, are there going to be cases where, you know, it would be nice if they would preserve more, but again, that could be part of the conversations, right? Yeah.
I see you taking a parcel that has swamp and beautiful ag land, and you're trading off the ag land for the swamp. That's what I see. And I like swamps, and swamps are important, but they couldn't build on the swamp anyway. And so the swamp is not at risk, and you're losing the protection of the ag land.
But not required.
Nancy, I hear you, but the farms have already protected a lot of that land. And they've either sold off a lot of the other land, because if it's not producing product for them, it's not part of the farm, because they can only keep 50 acres as part of an ag exemption for taxes. So on your primary conservation areas, so a PDR would count for that, purchase of development rights. So the farm could sell their land to the state. Would that be part of the primary conservation? These questions were sent to you, so.
Well, it's all part of whatever happens with the original parcel. And again, yes, I hate to keep going back to the Trillium Woods example, but in the case of the Trillium Woods, there's 56 acres that's being deeded off to the Wetlands Trust. There's 15 acres that's being deeded off to the town to protect Trillium Woods. There's that stuff does count, yes.
But it doesn't say that in there. Same with any of the NRCS grants, the fencing grants, the fence out wetlands. Same thing, there's nothing in there about it. A lot of farmers participate in these programs that protect open space. They protect waterways.
Right.
And does that count towards
I guess
open space? Yeah.
One solution, if you're worried about, I mean, the only out of the list of things that we have here, you know, DEC regulated wetlands in their wetland buffers are the only thing that really has any kind of regulatory protection. You could exclude wetlands from the count of your open space, and then everything else is fair game for that.
DEC protected wetlands, yeah. Buffers. And buffers, right. That makes sense. Certainly a lot easier than the wording that's there now.
Yeah.
Very straightforward, easy to enforce, easy for the ZBA to interpret.
Before making that change.
I would, so which section is this?
It's D, it's item D, number 1,
Okay.
page 2.
All right. And so
and then site design?
can you bring that up, Nan?
Oh, yeah,
Sure.
let's see here. Where's share screen? Oh, you gotta let me share my screen, whoever's controlling the thing.
You should be able to, Nan.
Okay, yes, okay. So here it is right here.
Yep.
The yellow part is what we have currently. A major subdivision must preserve at least 50% of the parcel's total unconstrained and buildable acreage is open space land.
Yeah, what we want to say now is we want to
Just
say
50% of the parcel's total acreage.
total acreage excluding DEC protected wetlands and buffers. So that would address the swamp. It was a big enough swamp. Yeah, yeah.
Does that feel better? No,
I
you
gave
gave
up.
up.
I gave up. I'm on top.
Never give up, Nancy.
I think it does.
That's what I used to type, yeah.
Okay, but I think it does actually lead to what you were worried about.
It started.
Yeah.
That's a much simpler paragraph.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think
And
we need any
I
of
think it accomplishes what we're trying to accomplish. So
yeah, and I don't think we need any of this other language that I crossed off here
Yeah,
because
yeah,
if you
no,
go down, it talks about what is open space.
yeah.
It's in the primary and secondary.
Yeah, so I think it's simple. 50% of the
All right.
total acreage excluding DEC protected wetlands and buffers.
Yep. Yep. I think that works.
While Nan's got that up, can we deal with a couple of picky editorial things? Under applicability, the second to last sentence to me appears to be contradicting the first sentence.
This one?
Yep, it says, this article shall be required for all major subdivisions, whereas in the beginning, we say it applies to all major subdivisions.
Yeah, I think this one could come out. It's
Yep.
duplicative.
Take that out.
And then scroll down to G, step 3. Partway down, little over halfway down, are required to eliminate the number of new cul-de-sacs.
Thanks.
I think that needs to be minimized.
Okay. Yes, that's right.
Okay.
So did you, while we're making these changes, you decided that we're taking RR out of this?
For the moment.
For the moment, yep.
And I think we will do some research about how much of RR is in the ag districts and look at the zone. And this is going to be looking at the zoning later on to say, should these, if they're in the ag district, should they be RR, right?
Right.
This,
Right.
because we don't know what that means at the moment.
Okay.
And so just to let people know about what we plan to do with this piece, we haven't decided whether we're going to vote on it tonight or not yet, but we'll get there in a minute. But the next steps, so let's say for the sake of argument, we decided to vote to make this recommendation to the town board. The plan is that what I'm thinking is that rather than just send it to the town board like we did the data center law, is that I, or unless somebody else really wants to, would go to the town board meeting and actually present it. Sort of, here it is, with a little bit of a presentation about what it is, why we're doing it, and how we got there, right? To talk about it. And I could at that point talk about what this overlay of ag district versus rural residential. So, you know, that's because the town board is going to have to review this and there's going to be public hearings and, you know, there likely might be a tweak or two that happens at that point before it's passed. So, so I think, you know, that's kind of where we are. So I'm thinking that's a better process than what we did with the data center law. I don't know, Dan, what your thoughts are on that, but yeah. Okay. So, so my question now is, are there other changes other than the ones we just, so we just went through, Nan, the changes that you made, we took out RR.
Yep.
We made some corrections to some language. Thank you, Cheryl. And we redid that paragraph on 50% to say 50% of the overall parcel, excluding DEC protected wetlands and buffers. I'm going to ask do we feel with those changes that we're ready to pass this on to the town board as a recommendation?
I'm okay with that, with the proviso that when it's presented to the town board, the compromise on the rural residential be brought to their attention.
Okay.
Most of them have. And you just not making specific projections in ag land.
But we're talking about rural residential zone.
No, I'm talking about thing, I just said that, you just said it's 50% of the whole parcel, excluding.
DEC protected wetlands.
No. It's not just ag lands in there. They take all those other things and build them all in.
We can only do so much. And I mean, and we have to look at what they could not protect all those other things and protect the ag land. Yeah. I mean, as it is, we're taking out the New York State designated stuff. If we do other stuff, it's going to get really complicated. So, all right. Question for the planning board is that, you know, with the changes we're talking about, do we feel this is ready to? Well, first of all, are there any other changes that people want to bring up about this other than what we've already discussed? No. Good. Question to the board. Do we feel we can pass this along?
So where does because they're gonna look at where these overlay, how does that get communicated? Or does that say to look at it, does that trigger it to go back in, or kind of what's the mechanism for that?
Well, it's going to be up to them to decide whether
It's going to be up to the town. Okay.
It would be up to the town board to decide whether or not it goes back in. Which, you know, everything we're passing to them, they can change, right? They could say, you know, based on the public hearing, they could say, well, we want more protection for this or that, or less protection for this. You know, I mean, they could tweak it however they want. I think for the most part, you know, I don't anticipate that's going to happen as dramatically as it did with the data center law, but you know, I would anticipate that there might be a tweak or two that happens as a result of the public hearings. Yeah. We've had so much input from all the committees. I'm not sending it back out again. Is that zone in there originally? Is that zone in there originally? I'm sorry.
They can't farm it. By removing the wetland, you've already created a much bigger area that.
But it was in our draft. It was not in our. Not.
Can't use
not
that
current law.
wetland.
Current law is just.
Like some farmers could object to it too, like if you. Say you can't build ever on your. arable
Right.
Good soil.
Right.
So nothing's being removed. This isn't on the current subdivision law right now, conservation subdivision.
Correct. Currently, there is no. Currently, there are no protections on ag land at all, really, other than the state protections. Yep. What's that? Yep.
Yeah, because you said you were making a major change. It's not currently in there now, so there's no change.
Right.
Well, you
Yes,
currently
we're
have
not actually, you're right. We didn't actually take it. We took something out of the draft. We did not take it out of the law because the current law doesn't have either ag or rural residential in it. Right. Currently, conservation
Right.
subdivisions are only required in conservation zones. I'll move that we, the draft with the changes that we discussed. And Nan, I'd ask you to send me the revised copy as soon as you can.
Yep.
We vote that this is our recommendation for adopting a new conservation subdivision section in our zoning code to the town board. That's our recommendation to the town board, that this be adopted as a new section, conservation subdivision section to our zoning code.
Do we need to stipulate any of the conditions that Cheryl brought up as part of that?
With the condition that we will present the compromise ag district information as part of the presentation to the town board.
I'd prefer to hold the vote until our planning board meeting and get the information and then we
Get
can
the
vote with that
information
in
ahead.
hand. That's my feeling. Then we can have a discussion about
Yep.
what percentage is right. Right, because we don't even know what to base it on right now. If it's 10%, are we comfortable with that? Is it 20%?
Well, yeah.
What's the threshold?
Yeah.
That's my, it would be nice to have that information, I guess.
Other thoughts?
I mean, it's 2 weeks away, right? 3 weeks away.
Yeah, but if we voted at so if we vote on it tonight, it can be presented to them at the June 18th town board meeting. If we vote on it at our next meeting, it is in July before we can present it.
So Dan, is the rush the moratorium conversation, or what is the rush between next month or this month for you guys?
I'm not a big fan of moratorium. That's
Mhm.
not.
Yeah.
Hard. Your question is you want to have better understanding percentage of ag district plan.
Exactly. So if we were to do rural residential included in this, it would be nice to know what percentage of that is actually impacted by ag land being part of that zone. So if it's 50%, we may have an opinion compared to 20%. And I don't know if we have that threshold right now. I don't know what we're thinking. What is the point where it impacts too much of the rural residential? Does that make, you know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
we're just, maybe that's up to the town board and it's fine.
That's kind of where I am, is I kind of think it's up to the town board to decide if it's.
Is if it, if it is a certain threshold, it suddenly impacts a large.
I mean,
portion.
based on what I saw, I suspect it's going to be a relatively small number. And the reason is because again, if you look at where the ag districts are, they aren't in these nodal areas where we're trying to promote growth, right?
Yeah.
For the most part. Yeah.
Well, I just don't like voting on things we don't have all the information on, that's all. But in general, it sounds like if it's up to the town board to make the decision in the end anyway, then it will be changed.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Exactly, right? That's my whole point. Because it is restrictive, so if it's impacting 70% of rural residential, which I don't think it does, that suddenly is a pretty big law being enforced upon quite a bit of land. If it's 10%, it's different. That's my only, and we don't know what that is right now, and so that's quite a bit.
Correct. Quite a bit of the town is in Ag District 1, but the vast majority of that is in our
Rural residential.
ag.
Rural ag.
Rural, yeah, so the
residential.
rural residential piece of that may be not impacted that much.
Right.
Again, it's back, I bet.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But with the recommendation that we figure out what percentage and say that the town should look at that.
By the meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
But that would be my intent, would be to figure that out and present it as, so when we present it to the town board, say, there was a concern about this, and certainly an option would be to have it required in those sections of rural residential that are in the ag district.
Yeah.
And present it just that way. And
Yeah.
here's the percentage. And
I'll be honest, my concern over all of this is back to land rights. And as a landowner, if you own on 50 acres, this limits the ability to do with it what you would want to.
right,
Right. And so if you're impacting a bigger part of the community, that matters to me. And that's why I'm asking the question.
right.
So again, it's going to be the town board's decision. So, yeah.
And here's the other thing. They're gonna have to have a
2045 plan is to preserve open space.
and you know what? That'll be presented to them and with those percentages. And if you want to go and speak out and in support of adding that in or taking it out,
I'm
you
welcome.
could certainly do that, as could Nancy, as could anybody else. Correct,
It's not in there.
correct. But
No, but it could be. That's all.
it could be, right.
Okay.
All right.
Right, my comment.
So I put a motion out there. Nobody's seconded it yet.
I will second it after this nice discussion we had here.
Okay. Any other discussion on this?
I think I've said enough.
What?
I've said enough.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Pat? I don't know if she's on there. Okay. So it's everybody minus Pat. Well, she should be. I mean, you're right. I haven't formally activated her at these meetings because we never have. You're right. I should have formally activated her.
But don't we
But
have
she's
quorum
been
in this
active at
room?
all the meetings. She's been active at all the meetings because we don't have 7
Yeah.
members.
But we do have full quorum.
We need to.
I suppose I probably should. I mean, like I said, we don't have 7 full members on the board. So she's just been, granted, she's listed as an alternate, but I guess I probably should formally activate her every time. All right. Yep. It's fine. Yep. That's fine. It's fine. I will remember to do that.
Sorry, I stepped away. I approve.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. But I will remember that because you're right. She is listed as an alternate, but we don't have 7 full members. So if she's here, she's active, right? So I should formally activate her as at each meeting. Don't let me forget that. All right. So we're done with that part. All right. Nan, you want to bring up the red line?
Yep.
And I had a bunch of comments from the housing committee. I need to bring those up. What do I do? Oh, there they are. Couldn't find my glasses. I need my glasses.
Is that where we were going to start on the site plan review? Or you had other things?
It's sections 11, 12, and 13. So
Yep.
are we section?
Yep.
Yep. So that's
Where we
it.
are.
That's where we're starting. Yep. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to get to. I had to reboot my computer at the start of this meeting, so things are closed. I got to bring it back up. I got a bunch of stuff from the housing committee.
Yep.
And who else sent me stuff? Yeah, you sent me one thing on the solar. All right. Where's this document? Here it is.
Someone just entered the waiting room. Frank?
Gina will
Okay.
take care of that. All right. So section 2711. There are some comments on anybody have comments on sections 11.1? No. 11.2 housing committee had some recommended changes. The board may, and then added in if a majority of the board agrees. I don't think that's really needed. That's kind of redundant because I mean any action of the board requires a vote and a majority of the board. So I don't know that wording is really necessary.
Oh, I lied. I didn't know it was in section 1.
Oh, sorry.
So it's in section C, all site plan reviews in conjunction with the special use permit shall be conducted by the town board.
Mhm.
Wasn't that something we were going to look at changing?
We did talk about changing that, but
That was in my audit too.
that was in the audit, yes.
Yeah, so have the planning board do both the site plan and the special use permits.
Because the town board would still obviously sign off on the special use permit, but I thought we were trying to get all the site plans to be reviewed by the planning board. I could be wrong. Okay.
I mean, ultimately, my recommendation was that, and maybe, the town board doesn't want this, but it's highly unusual to have the town board issue special use permits. It's usually either the ZBA or the planning board. So it just makes for a less streamlined review process when it's, this one application is bouncing from different boards. So if you're looking for streamlining and being more efficient,
I'm fine with, in fact, I'd like to see us move away from this as well. We can certainly make that recommendation to the town board. The town board can say, no, we want to do it. But I agree with you. I think one of the things we talked about was moving this to, was doing it differently, where all the site plan reviews and seeker and all that stuff was done. The planning board.
I mean, it certainly makes it more efficient for people trying to get
It does. It makes it much more efficient.
I would be surprised if that's not in the original charge. If it is omitted, it
Yep.
was an oversight.
It was an oversight.
Something we've talked about for 10 years.
So yes, we want to make that change.
With the exception, however, that
This is what part of this is?
This is section C in jurisdiction.
Number 1.
Jurisdiction. Yep. Shall be conducted. So we want to change that to be planning board. And like I said, we can make that recommendation, and if the town board disagrees, they can change it back. Or not, actually, they would be choosing not to change it at that point, but
Yeah, we might want to retain a special use permit review for energy projects.
for energy projects, okay. Well, we can talk about that. Yep.
And, you know,
Yep.
Yeah, because I think it was in a laser phase, we were gonna look at all of the special use
Right.
permit
Yes.
cases.
Right.
But I don't think it was as part of this, but
right.
I think that was gonna be looked at next.
Okay.
I mean, even that would be greatly simplifying this whole process for people. If energy projects went to the board, and that was the one.
Yeah, 'cause I think there was, I think 5-ish or 6-ish, if I remember offhand, that you guys were interested in retaining for special use permit.
Review authorities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. That's fine.
I'm trying to find the.
It was like
the original-
solar, I can't remember all of them, but
It was, yeah, I know it was solar and probably battery energy storage, maybe.
Yeah, so that's why I just said
Yep.
energy as
Energy,
a
yeah,
catch-all.
yep.
But
I think that's in a different section, like of the,
It is.
Yeah, that could be identified in those sections. So we have a section on solar and we added energy storage. We could say that the town board will be doing the review and permitting site plan and special use permits.
Got it. Okay. Okay, 11.2.
So number 2 now becomes redundant. C2. Because you just changed it to planning board for all. Right? So you
Oh.
might want to keep the town board there for specific use, special use permits, and leave the 2 and 3 alone.
Or unless otherwise noted. And
Yeah.
And C2 would be unless otherwise noted
Right.
under C2.
Yeah.
She's
Under
talking
2.
under 2, unless otherwise noted in sections or however you want to word it.
Well, I don't think I actually, but if we change one, you don't, that whole line 2 is redundant.
You can
As Pat
delete it.
pointed out. Just take it out. And
Maybe
actually you
two.
don't need 3 either. Yep.
Or in one, then you need to take out special use permit, because it needs to be all site plans then.
Well, especially
Yeah, I mean,
Well, this is-
actually, number 2, I would say number 2 is get rid of this and say all site plans shall be conducted by the planning board unless noted in this law.
each permit's their own thing.
sure.
Right.
And then 3 would go away.
3 goes
No,
away.
there are multiple places where we just say the board, the board, the board.
Right.
That's why number 3 is there.
Right.
But there aren't both boards right now.
There are other places in the law where we say, right,
Oh, fair.
that's right. So 3 is still needed. So really line 1 comes out then, and line
Certain
2
instances
becomes
would
line
be
1, right?
site plan. Special use permit review.
That was my point.
There's other,
In this section, both boards are referred to as.
There's-
Say both boards, and you're not. Each have referred to the town board. In
I know,
section
but there's so
1,
many
2,
directives
that
within.
out.
Well, because it says-
Board.
unless otherwise noted in the law,
If we're doing site plan review for.
site plan reviews are done by the planning board unless otherwise noted.
It's just,
Say section both.
Oh, both boards. Oh, then and this one we might want to say, the town board and the planning board are referred to as may be referred to as the board. Yeah.
Take it out, I should.
Correct. Right. Planning board may be referred to as the board. Yep. Got it. Yep. Got it. Okay. The next one, 11.2 F. It says the board may, in appropriate cases, waive further plan review. The housing committee was recommending adding after the board may if a majority of the board agrees. But that's really redundant because I mean, you got to vote, anything we're voting on you need the majority to move it forward anyways. So I don't think it's necessary to have those wording in there.
Agreed.
But then they also have a comment about spelling out what is meant by appropriate cases.
Well, that's very specific to whatever they're reviewing. It's in it, you know, the planning board may, on a case by case basis, waiver further site plan review, maybe is a better way of saying that.
Right.
Maybe just delete the clause inappropriate
Yeah.
cases. The board
Right,
may
right.
waive further site plan review based on the information.
Provided.
Yes.
Yes, I like that.
That's a good idea.
Chuck, your thoughts? Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Other sections, any comments on other pieces here? The next one that I have from the housing committee is section 11.3.15.
That's right.
The only thing,
Go ahead.
I could have missed it when I was reviewing this earlier, that we had talked about, is there incomplete? Because we talked about maybe tightening up incomplete application, or is that already covered? Where? I could be in the wrong section.
Well, there is, you know, we talk about that when deemed complete, wait, why does it say the planning department? So this was one of the things I didn't change, but the way it's you, I guess I'm a little uncomfortable with the planning department determining that an application is complete. That's really the authority of the planning board to do. So you don't seem to do it that way. I'm looking at this one right here. When deemed complete, the planning department will schedule a final site plan review and public hearing if required.
Because we've had plenty of them that were not complete that we've looked at. And then I think we've had to provide more information. I just thought more clarity. Section.
Yeah, I mean the rules for site plan review is the time frame. None of the time frames start in your process until you guys deem the application complete. And here you have the planning department deeming the application complete, and I don't know how they know that.
Well, I mean, the way we've had a lot of discussion around this previously, actually before many of the people who are on the board now were on it. The idea was that have the planning department decide if it's complete before it comes to us, rather than having incomplete applications coming to us and we decide whether or not it's complete. Right. It was really meant to be more efficient, so that in theory we would, not be spinning our wheels, having to push things off because we had to have people come back with more information because they had an incomplete application. So it was really meant to be sort of a thing to help the people requesting the site plan review, was to know whether or not they had a complete application.
I think we may be conflating two different ideas here. One is, have they provided all of the items in the package that are required? And the other is, do the items they've provided satisfy all of our questions?
Right.
The former
Well,
is
then there's the
complete as far
complicating-
as the staff is concerned.
Right.
The latter is incomplete as far as we're concerned. So I'm okay with this language here, as long as we understand that, okay, You think you provided a complete package, you've got all the pieces, but we got questions.
Well, and that's going to happen. I mean, that's really, I mean, because it's really what's going to trigger a site plan review? What's going to trigger the timelines and the things that actually form a site plan review? Because you want to make sure that what you're looking at has all of the check boxes checked. But there's been times too where we decide that, this project doesn't need all these things, right? This particular project may not need everything that's in the list, right? But that's also why we're looking at the modified site plan review, is to simplify in some cases what people need to provide. Because there are cases where, yes, we have this big long list of things big checklist, right, that they're supposed to put in. But, do they really need it for all projects?
Yeah.
Well, and another complicating matter is if you go back to on the screen, I put up what we had already decided we added a definition of complete application. And according to seeker definitions, a complete application is one that has had either a negative declaration made by the reviewing board or an acceptance of a draft environmental impact statement. So when you add in seeker, a complete application isn't really complete until you've done that part of, you've done seeker. You've gotten that far on seeker.
So this definition of complete is different than what we're talking about.
Yeah, you're talking about complete and ready for the planning board to start looking at it versus a complete application that triggers readiness for a public hearing.
Gotcha.
So you need a different word besides complete?
We need a different definition for what. You're right. It's not because there's already this.
Yeah, it's working
definition.
well the way we're doing it, but since we're putting it in the writing, just to be clarified, that's all. Yeah.
Sometimes
Correct.
what we do is we call a complete application and then complete
Right.
for review,
Right.
and have two separate terms. Complete for review is it's ready for the planning board.
That's right. But
Yeah.
that's a different thing. Yes, that's absolutely right.
Yeah, because in the case of turnover board or other staff,
Right,
then it's
right.
more clear.
Right.
Because the way it's working now is doing well.
Right.
Just wanted to make sure that it would continue doing well.
Most of
Or-
the applications that we get have missing parts or incomplete things. And so I don't tend to pass those on to you until
Right.
I get people to answer those things
Oh, yeah, and that works well. Yeah.
That works really well.
but yeah,
Yeah.
the word, I guess, complete.
But that's not-
Has a technical definition
But that step is not.
Yeah.
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 You're saying we can't rule on this now, so it's really just language here, it's the board, not.
Correct. And that thing we're talking about, where you review it and say, yes, it's ready for the planning board, that's not actually written into this.
Right.
Complete for review. There's the definition. Complete for review. Yes. Okay. All right.
No.
No.
No,
We
we wanted to make sure that
we
this
wanted
would
to-
continue.
I don't
over
want to
time.
pass on
Yeah.
steps.
But now I understand why it is the planning board that determines whether it's complete, because complete means, in this sense, means something different. Yes. Yes. So, do we need to change anything there?
I would say instead of calling it completeness, use the word in order to determine whether the application is complete for review.
Or readiness for review, or is it to determine readiness for review
Yes.
rather than
Right.
completeness for review?
Right.
Yeah, because that's really what she's doing, or what Gina's doing, right? In this case, or the. I think it's good because I think see developers use this to know what to do, right? So yeah. So I think noting that in here is good because they understand that these are the steps for a site plan review.
Yeah, just want all the,
Yep.
as many months of
No,
discussions.
I get it. It's
Just
just
so that-
complete in this sense means something different than what we're talking about is complete.
Yes, it's very confusing everywhere.
Thanks, Chris.
Well, yeah, because prior to a lot of your time here, there was a lot of discussion on this very
Yeah,
topic.
yeah, oh,
And
yeah.
it got,
yeah.
and it got well sorted out.
Yeah. We've had a lot of discussion on this. Yep,
Continues.
yep. So where are we? So
We're
that's it.
on,
In two, like I said, the housing board, the next one is under section 315.
Tony, I'm sorry to interrupt. Back in G, is that last phrase there still?
G.
this one, when
Detailed site
deemed
plan.
The
ready.
planning department will schedule a final site plan review and public hearing if required.
See, you do
Skipping-
that, or is that really the planning board's role?
No. I think it's the planning board, right? Because I do the agendas. I determine, yeah, it's the planning board. So when deemed, when deemed ready, the planning board will schedule the final site, because
See, that-
I actually schedule that, because this is,
So now this is really where then the word complete. So the key, maybe this isn't the wording you want at all, because really what we want to say, and it might be down further, where we talk about the public hearing. Let's see, public
Right.
hearing. Yeah, so it says the board may hold a public hearing upon receipt of a complete site plan application.
right. So, but up above, we're not saying complete.
Yeah.
But it is so once it's ready to be reviewed, the planning department lets us know that and passes it to us. Right.
Can you say when deemed ready for review, the planning department will notify the planning board?
I'm sorry, say that again.
When deemed ready for review, the planning department will notify the planning board,
Yes.
and then you take it from there.
And we take it from there. Correct.
No, it needs to say that they notify Tony. And because if
Well,
Tony's
well, they-
name isn't here, that locks him into the chair. He's gonna say.
No. No, let's not do that.
Oh.
They're referring it to the planning board. However we schedule, however we create the agenda, that's how they're referring it to the planning board. They're getting it on the agenda. And the way we do the agendas right now is I have a meeting the week before our planning board meetings with Gina and Ray, and they tell me what needs to be on here. But I create the agendas, so I should say the chair creates the agendas, and that's pretty traditional, right? So, but no, do not put my name in here. Then you have to change the code. Okay.
Okay.
Did
the
you want
next
to
one
add in
was
there,
number
like Janice
15.
was saying about the planning board determines completeness to complete, we should say that chain?
That's later on.
Oh, is that not correct?
Back up.
It's for builders to understand the chain of events. That's where you would describe it. Detailed site plans shall be reviewed by the planning department, then.
Pass the planning
then
board.
or when the planning board deems it complete, they will schedule a final, if that's what you're trying to do here.
Yep.
To map out that.
Right.
process.
Right.
It's the same with the ZBA, it's the same process.
Yep. And planning board, and that's what it says there. The planning board will schedule the final site plan review and public hearings if required. Right. Okay. We okay? All right. 15. Location to sanction of all. So this says, one of the things they talked about adding was location design and construction materials of all, and it says on-site energy distribution systems. Energy distribution, this is energy distribution facilities. They're suggesting systems servicing the project. What they're suggesting, what the suggestion is change this to read the location, design and construction, location, design and construction materials of all on-site, that's adding the word on-site, energy distribution, get rid of facilities, systems servicing the projects, including electrical, gas, and solar energy, as well as energy systems for heating and cooling the site and energy storage units integral to the project.
So, this was actually my question, and I wondered if, as it's currently worded, does it mean energy distribution facilities off-site coming into the developed, the area to be developed? And I thought, no, that couldn't possibly be. It has to be the on-site distribution, but I could be wrong.
It could be both, because for example, in a solar project, you're looking at interconnects.
Good point. Yeah. Right. So.
You could also be looking at where water lines are coming in. You could be looking at
All right.
where, so some of it's on, I think it's actually both.
But then all, as it's presently worded would cover that, would it
Yeah.
not?
If you do on site, it wouldn't cover, it. You would limit it.
Right.
That's, yeah, all right, so I'm wrong there. And then the rest of it is in addition to distribution, I was thinking about the sourcing.
Well, so the question becomes, does energy distribution facilities cover everything, or is it better to spell it out? I
Well,
guess.
let's see, do we have a definition for it? Let's see. We do not have a definition for energy distribution facility.
Right.
Unless it's under solar.
So actually what they're in this suggestion, what they're actually suggesting is replacing facilities and defining what an energy distribution facility is. Right. I don't think we want to include the word on site. I think we want to say location, design, and construction materials of all energy distribution systems servicing the project, including electrical, gas, and solar energy, as well as energy systems for heating and cooling the site and energy storage units integral to the project. Yeah, I'm wondering if we need to be that specific.
That's your definition. Distribution.
Yeah.
Good point.
You can never get through those definitions.
I know. We can go back to the definitions.
And there. And
right.
Future energy systems to be developed by AI.
Thank you.
But
So Nan, I mean, energy distribution facilities, I mean, does that, do we need to?
I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
I think it's I think distribution is the problem. It's really, isn't it the location? So remember, we're looking at the site plan law that covers everything from building a retail store to a solar farm.
Right.
So, this is asking for the site plan to include the location, the design, and the construction materials of all basically energy related features needed on the site. So
I like that wording, and energy related features. Yeah. Yeah.
Because, think of the broader context of site plan review. This is not just for solar. This is for Joe Schmo is building a building and he has to put a telephone pole up.
And we did this, I'm thinking of the INHS site plan review in Varna. We wanted to know where they were putting the heat pump condensers, right? And because of noise constraints, we wanted to know, those kind of things. And we needed to know where's the fire hydrants, where do the water lines come in,
right.
Those kind of things.
Where the telephone poles go.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Energy related elements. I think in this part, I don't know that we need to go further than that. Like, could it be just location, design, construction materials of all energy related elements?
Sure.
think it's better to not limit it.
Right.
All inclusive.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Good, and that would include heating and cooling, because heating and cooling requires energy, right? So, yep. All right. Any other things in this section 3? And does anybody have anything else? What was the section you sent me something on?
It's in solar.
So, okay, all right. Oh, no, we're not there. Okay.
I'm just wondering, Tony, your timing of your meetings, are you going to keep going?
It is 8:00. Let me see. Where are we here? Can we get through? Let's
Site plan review.
can we get through site plan review? And stop, because yeah, it's just 2 more. There's a few more comments in site plan review that I have here. Does anybody else have stuff in site plan review? Which would be, and let's stop at 11.5, which is modified site plan review for 3 and 4-plex. We'll hold that off to the next meeting. Can we get through 11.3 and 4? So we just did 11.3. Any other comments on 11.3? Okay, 11.4, board actions on site plan review, new application. We already have a bond completed. This section 2, public hearing, section 2. The comment is too subjective, delete. What? I'm reading the comment that's here. 2, in determining whether under public hearing, in determining whether a public hearing is necessary, the board will be guided by.
Yeah, I mean, it's really not, I mean, the public interest in the project is part of it, but it might be the complexity of the project. It might be the location of the project. It might be the scale of the project, the type of project. I mean, there's all sorts of things that you would feel you want public input on.
Right.
Can you just leave it? Is it determining? Oh wait, so this is I don't know.
I don't think we want to delete it. I don't know if we want to make it clearer what it means, but
Do we define public interest? It's such a huge ball of wax in planning literature and legal literature. If you want to leave it, it's pretty open-ended.
well, the thing I'm not sure. Well, and this is talking about public hearing. I mean, expected level of public. I don't think it's level of. It does sound bad. It does sound bad.
Then the 1 and 2 applicants may request one. You could just take out number 2. It sounds sort of dictatorial, like, no, we don't think people are interested. There's something not that doesn't
Yeah.
sit well with that. I'm not sure why you have to say it, since it's hard to know what it means anyway.
Well, it's implied, so.
That's what I
question
mean.
if you want it explicit or not.
Right.
To me, it's explicit, it's saying that the board has
Have you
discretion.
have you had problems
board
making a
deems it
determination
necessary?
before?
But I thought number 1 is where it says the board may hold a public hearing. It doesn't insist that they do.
Well, that to me implies a certain covert, exclusive nature. And the number 2 says that, the board will look at what public interest is. And if there's a lot of public interest and the board doesn't hold a public hearing, then the public could say, hey, you're violating number 2.
I like Frank's.
But it's not just public
Say it again.
interest.
Or just when it deems necessary, it's kind of, it fits what you're saying too, because we can tell when there's a lot of public interest, but at the discretion of the board.
Right.
Do you often have site plan reviews that You don't do a public hearing on?
Most of them.
Most of
Most
them.
site plan reviews, we do not do public hearings on, but unless it's designated. For example, major subdivisions, public hearings are required
Yes.
as part of the code. There are certain things that we do where public hearings are required. I would
Right,
think,
but for site plans.
I would think if we were doing an SUP, a public hearing might be required.
And that's changing. I was going to do more of them.
Right. So are public hearings required currently for SUPs?
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
state law requires them.
Right. So there, I guess that's the thing is there's certain things that where we're required to hold a public hearing. So public hearings, the board may hold a public hearing as upon receipt of a completed site plan application.
Can we just modify it to be,
When the opportunity for public interest, for public input is necessary for full consideration of the proposal or something along those
Or
lines.
you could say.
or required by code.
Yeah, yeah, or you could say when associated with a special use permit, the planning board shall hold a public hearing.
but wouldn't that be covered in the special use permit section?
Right. This is the site plan review.
This is site plan.
So this is saying that the board may hold, so this is site plan reviews, may hold a public hearing upon receipt.
I would say,
Period.
yeah. At the board's discretion.
At, yeah. Just say at the board's discretion, it may hold a public hearing. All right, public hearing at the board's discretion.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, and delete number 2.
Yeah.
And then, well, number 3 becomes number 2. Applicants may request a public hearing. Blah, blah, blah. So you got both sides. Yeah, yeah, I think that makes sense. Because there's going to be the things that require a public hearing, that's all covered in those sections. Okay. All right, good.
It covers Dan's part too. It's
Right.
you
Yep.
explain that we can,
Yep.
and then it, yeah.
C1.
wait,
Conformance
that's
with
not
towns.
the same.
Well, and I don't
Where
know
is
that we
it?
need to change the wording here because the comment is review design guidelines for potential exclusionary bias.
I said that simply because I couldn't find them.
Right,
Maybe I really know.
Yeah, and
right.
that's one of the problems. It's not attached to the zoning.
It's not attached to the zoning. They're a separate thing. And that's one of the things we're talking about doing in this rewrite is including the design guidelines in the zoning code.
It's a guidelines like an aside. It's not even law.
Right. It's right now, it's just sort of a side thing,
Recommendation,
right? Yeah, it's
essentially.
recommendations. It's not part of the code. So I don't think that changes this sentence, but it's a note that, and like so many of these things, this is a note that as we get into future phases, we need to be looking at these things. And then 2, which is about proposed use, design and layout character that's in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the surrounding area. Harmony, the comment, I'm just going to read the comment. Harmony is a potentially loaded word, or is potentially loaded as well against certain structures, e.g. manufactured housing with secure foundation, despite equivalencies to other single-family homes.
2.
C2 in the red line.
Yeah, it's actually C13.
Oh, sorry. The document I'm looking at is got stuff pulled out. I'm sorry, C13 will be location size that it will be in harmony with an appropriate orderly development of surrounding. How about consistent?
Much better.
Okay. Replace harmony with consistent.
Less value laden.
I agree. I think that's a better word. And the last comment from the housing committee.
On number 15, sorry if you can go back, there's a typo. It says he maintained, it should be B.
Yep.
Got it.
Thanks.
Got that? Yep.
Yep.
And then section H. The comment is, does failure to take action include stalled action to get project financing?
No, it means that the board doesn't act to make a decision within the 62 days.
Right.
You can keep the hearing open and not act, right? You can.
Correct.
You can delay.
Right. But if the question here is, this is the board failing to take an action. This is not, if the board is waiting for, say, financing, project financing to happen, that's not the board that's failing to. Yeah. Yeah.
Not on the board.
It's not on the, or anything where the applicant doesn't show up or doesn't provide something, that's not really the board failing to take action.
And a lot of communities don't include this because they, I mean, it's added in the spirit of making sure that the board is efficient and moves the project along and makes the decision, so it doesn't keep it going and going and going.
Correct. Okay. That's the last comment I have on these sections. Any other comments? Okay. Next, I want to set the agenda. So one of the things I'm trying to do, like I did last time, is we're trying to set the agenda for the next meeting so people, when they leave here, they know what the topics are for the next meeting. So we don't have to wait for the agenda to come out to know what the topics are for the next meeting.
Could I have one? I think I almost feel like there should be one last section of there. And sorry to keep going, but where it comes to enforcement, that probably shows up other places. But if the board can pull a permit or approval if like recommendations aren't followed. Because right now,
That's only the enforcement officer that can do that. The board has no enforcement authority.
Board has no
I'm
enforcement.
just, what is the time we could?
Want it.
Yeah, that's my point.
enforcement authority.
Trying.
Well, I personally
What's that?
agree.
Yeah.
I agree with Frank that at some point, all of this work has got to mean something.
Right.
And enforcement is a huge piece of the puzzle.
What else what are we doing?
Yeah, it's just not
Yeah.
not part of the board's.
Right,
Yeah.
But we're the one providing we're providing approval and authorization, expecting that to be followed. If they don't follow, we should be able to pull that authorization. It's probably
It's
getting off
it's
again.
enforcement.
Well, I guess the question becomes, and I don't know where it would go in here. It's not part of the site plan review.
It's not really.
This section.
It's overall, actually.
But later on, there might be, I would like to see something in here that defines how enforcement works.
Yes, I
Like
agree.
it says, code enforcement officers may pull permits or deny permits based on, if they don't comply with, what I'd like to see is something that says the code enforcement officers cannot issue a certificate of occupancy if they have, if the
If
project
it's
has
met.
violated
Yeah.
things like the conservation subdivision
Yeah,
building
absolutely.
lots and those kind of things, right? I think that's where it needs to go in, but
I'm kind of
Yeah.
a little bit.
okay. All right. So next time, we're going to pick up with section 270.11.5, which is the modified site plan review. We'll leave sections 270.12 and 270.13 on the list for next time. Is there another section after that, Nan, that we can?
Let's see. 13 is the solar energy.
Although, actually, those two things, special use permit, and that may be a full meeting right there.
Yeah, and then after that, then you get into the zoning board of appeals, which is mostly just, like the
Right.
site plan. It was just
Okay.
tweaks of
So-
getting it into conformance with the state law.
All right. So we're going to pick up with 11.5. We'll have 270.12 and 13 on the list. and any definitions that we need to revisit. Right now, there's two definitions we need to revisit that relate to affordable housing and workforce housing. If there are other definitions we need to revisit, we should get them on the list as well. But those are the two that are on. So those will be on the agenda for next time.
Thank you.
And I think that's it for tonight. Thank
Okay.
you all. Thanks, Nan.
Okay, we'll see you